Ecoa PUC Rio, Brasil Energia Magazine, Bratec, Visão TV bring the topic Marketing of Crude Oil with Dib Cohen, former CEO of Petrobras Europe, CEO and senior consultant of JDC Energia. Thank you by accepting to record this cafe. Good evening, Dib Cohen.
Hi, thank you, Cavani. I'm the pleasure to be here at the cafe with you. Unfortunately, it's a virtual coffee, it's not a real one, but you owe me that, and you owe my mug as you promised to me.
Don't worry, I have your mug with me, and as soon as we can meet physically, I can take to you, no problem. Thank you for coming. Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dib. Please, Dib. Brazil has some distinct characteristics in the productive system. I mean, in the regulatory framework too. With the growth of internal oil production that we have is a very strong one, including exporting almost 1 million barrels a day last April. What are the main difference among Brazil and other countries in terms of crude oil marketing?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think that let's go back in the history to understand what Brazil means in the past and what is meaning now, and how the market in the crude and the crude is growing up. Let's go back before the year 2000. Brazil was have a monopoly in Brazil by Petrobras, a monopoly of production, exploration, and marketing and transportation. By the end of that time, actually by 1995, Brazil started growing the production, and by the end of 1998 or 99, if I'm not wrong, I was working there in Houston in Petrobras America, and Petrobras started exporting the crude. At the beginning, only Petrobras. The crude at the time was mainly the marine crude, and there are also Bacora crude. But the marine crude was a very heavy, it's a kind of heavy oil for that time, it's a very heavy oil. But it was just Petrobras itself exporting that oil. It was very difficult to start showing up Petrobras in the market, international market. Petrobras already established an office in Houston, there's an office in London, commercial office, marketing, trading. And there's an office in Argentina, and almost starting an office in Singapore. But mainly for products, not for crude. Crude, we are just importing crude for Brazil, not exporting crude. And before that, we were importing a lot of oil from Middle East, from Africa, West Africa. But back to the marine crude. To launch the marine crude in the market, Petrobras created a big task effort to go to each office and show the oil in the market. So because Petrobras started becoming an exporter, and people say, come on, how Brazil is exporting and not importing? And the oil was heavy. It was difficult to market by that time. It was like kind of have a high content of salt and water, because by that time they could not treat the whole oil in the platform. They are starting the FPSO, starting the systems. But we could find a place in Houston for the major companies, a place in Trinidad Tobago, the Trinidad, there's the company, start buying. In Europe, we start putting one cargo here, one cargo there, huge discount. Discount by that time was like $15.
Wow.
Brent
less 15.
At that time was not Brent, it was WTI, because the benchmark was more WTI, which was the actual Brent. But that time was WTI minus $15. It's a huge discount, but it's a kind of starting point to launch an oil from a country that was unknown as an exporter. I'm talking about the history for you to understand what's going on today. Totally different. And the marine crude is the traders of Petrobras start knowing the market, start knowing the refineries, and we are start doing more, let's say, one-to-one, let's say, producer directly to refiners. And we start getting marketing. Of course, there's the outside environmental, like the Russian crisis that put the oil down, the Saudi OPEC crisis that in 1999, the oil came down all the way down to $10. And can you imagine how to export oil marine? And so that's not the same $15 of course. But it was not getting too much money. But the price tried to reduce the export, but then the price start coming back in from 2000. They opened the market in Brazil. It allowed to other companies to come to produce, start the bid rounds. And then came first Shell came, start producing Estrela do Mar, and then Bijupirá and some other oils, and then came Statoil and BP and other foreign companies start producing also in Brazil. And that started the year 2000, and Petrobras started import of Mali. Let's put back to your question. I have a lot of stories to tell. I have, I think, it's a long time, and I presses all different phases of the exporting. But back to your question, Brazil, Petrobras start being known in the market exporting and start putting in the east. China was not a big importer by that time, but start putting to India, Singapore, Europe was buying a lot in the United States mainly. Was the main market was the U.S. Gulf, the refineries in the U.S. Gulf, because they're already prepared for heavy oil, because they're already prepared for refine the Mexican crude and the Venezuelan crude, which are very heavy. That's just to know the history is not easy. Nowadays, it's much easier because we start producing the pre-salt crude, which is instead of 19 API, the density is like 31, which must be much better oil, very low sulfur.
Compared to the 18 in the past from Marlin.
Compared to the 18. So it's much like giving wine instead of water. Looks like that. But then we start, let's say, Brazil, it's very well located to be in the international market because Brazil is very close to US, let's say 15 days voyage, or of course, not so close to India, to China, but it's in the middle. If you compare Brazil to North Sea have to go all the way down north, have 10, 15 days more distance from Brazil to Asia, from US, same. And you can achieve the American market, you can achieve the European market, you can achieve the East market, China. By that time in the year early 2000, 2002, 2003, China started growing the imports and Brazil started growing the production. By 2008, up to 2008, we are not exporting still the pre-salt, more still the Mali was the main, Mali, Rocador, and Albacora. And you start having a contract with China by that time in 2008. They came here, they bring like $10 billion. Instead, they're getting the oil for 10 years contract. So there was like money for oil. And Petrobras needs that money to develop the pre-salt. And the Chinese were, like the policy of the Chinese were more like finance the production. And that they did. And they still have the contracts with, they still renew these contracts of financial contracts for many times.
Jeep, this is a very strong strategy. Was from Japan in the past, and nowadays it's from China.
Yes.
Very similar way to do business.
The Chinese, they put the money and then they get all the oil. They did that in Africa, in West Africa. They did that in Brazil the same. And still now, what happened now? It's a little different, but they are still financing many companies, not just the oil side, but many other oil, communication, airports, and all of that, cars. But let's say back to your question, because if I start telling stories, but the discount for the oil, I don't know if I go to the other question, but you can come back all the
No
time.
problem. No problem. Go ahead.
I'm talking about how's the market and the value of the crude oil of Brazil. Uh, with the Mali crude, you learn a lot. Brazil learns a lot how to place the oil and be known in the market as a big exporter. The, while you're increasing the volumes, the export, you are increasing, you are getting better quality. You're having better FPSOs, increasing the quality and getting more market. So the market was competing to the oil and then you're getting better price. You can imagine, I told you at the beginning that we are, the beginning start exporting at TI minus 15. That's good, just to not to confuse anyone, the
Sure.
ones that doesn't know what the difference between WTI and Brent.
But
They are
nowadays,
both
the discount nowadays is $15 minus
no,
or no?
much less, much lower.
Oh yeah.
That's what I'm about to tell you.
Oh.
The discount by that time was like beginning was like $15, from 15 to $10. There's times that goes up to 18, times goes up to down to 12, but that's a huge discount. But we start, let's say, learning the markets and start having competition from the refineries. And so, in the beginning, you are having difficulties to place the oil, but later on, we start having two refineries trying to have the oil at the same time. So we have competition. Offices in London compete with the office in Houston, so getting better price. So they're increasing the price, reducing the discount to WTI. When we start the late 2000s, so maybe are less than $10 discount. 2009, 2010 are less than $10 discount and getting better. We developed a strategy to put a floating storage, not a floating, storage in reefs. So we're putting big vessels to Bahamas and then storage the oil there, and then small vessels, shuttle vessels go from Bahamas to US Gulf. Because the refineries in the US Gulf, they are not prepared to getting big cargoes, 2 million barrels cargo. They can get only 500,000 barrels. So put like a VLCC, which is a 2 million barrels vessel from Brazil to Bahamas to storage there, and then small vessels going there and sell to several refineries there. They can have Valero, Chevron, let's say many refineries that are buying the crude from Petrobras. And then we start having the other companies coming and they start producing the pre-salt. Other oils, not just the pre-salt. In the beginning, there are some post-salt, like you have Shell with Bijupiro, have Statoil with Peregrino. We had, let's say, Devon, and then BP with Polvo. Have OGX with Tubarão Martelo. We have several companies producing different kinds of oil. Chevron with Frade, and they start exporting to many countries. Similar oils, not light oils, medium heavy, like from 18 to 22 API, except Peregrino, which was, let's say, 14 APIs, very heavy oil. But this is a different story. And the market start looking for Brazilian, liking the Brazilian crude. We develop a big fleet, and so the logistic was much more easy by that time than it was before. We have the vessels loading. We learn how to load in FSOs from floating storage, so that was much easier. Reducing the costs, reducing the freight, getting more money for the oil, and more investments. Then came the pre-salt. Pre-salt came in 2008. Let's say 2007, 2008 was discovered the first Lula. It was the Lula. And there's a big, huge reservoir, probably as everyone talks about the reservoir of pre-salt, big productions. And then we start first exporting US, Europe, and then China start buying a lot of this oil. So during the year, let's say in 2008, you have the crisis of the subprime crisis. What happened after 2008, the Chinese, they start growing the economy, they start increasing the imports more and more. Meaning that we are directing a lot of our production, especially from the pre-salt to the east, to the China. And that's coming up, and then the price was getting better. The Mali started at minus 15. It was traded at minus 5, minus 6, minus 4. other oils at the same level.
Yeah, it's very good.
And then it's not
Minus one.
more TI, was more talking about Brent. Brent substitutes the TI as a benchmark for the international crudes after 2010.
Mhm.
That comes with the growing of production in US for the shale oil. So the price of TI get down a lot, drop down because of the huge production in the Midwest, the area where the WTI was priced. And so then TI is not more representing more the international benchmark, it's more just financial. And then Brent start being the international benchmark for
But
the crude. Right.
Petrobras said that exported 1 million barrels a day in the last April. It's a huge volume. It's fantastic, no?
Yeah, that's a huge. I can say that maybe 90% goes to China. That's the main market. Well, that was why when China started the coronavirus pandemic there in March, in February, that's a huge problem for Brazil and for many countries
Yeah,
to export. But we
yeah.
have something happened this year. Let's say not this year, last year, that changed completely the trading of the crude. And that comes maybe, I don't know if we can go continue that talking stories and or do I
No
have
problem.
questions?
You are owner of our time.
Okay, okay. Uh, the past is very good to know the past, to learn from the past, not repeat the same
The same
mistakes in
errors.
the future. But I like to say that if you drive a car, look into the mirror, you crash. So you need to look forward, not through the mirror. But the past is good just to know. But in two, or 2020, in 2017 or 2017, it was a decision by the IMO, International Maritime Organization, to reduce the sulfur of the bunkers from 3.5% sulfur to 0.5.
But it's good for
Huge change.
pre-salt. Pre-salt oil is much better for this purpose,
Yes,
no?
yeah, that's what I'm going to tell you.
Oh, oh.
That was the big difference and big change for Brazilian crude, and that's good. And what happened that they decided that people say, oh, that would be impossible to comply. Companies will not comply with that because impossible to because all the Middle East oil it's heavy, high sulfur, like 3%, 2.5%. Many crude oils, you have the American, they are very low sulfur, but they are very light. You have the Brent and TI, they are low sulfur. But then you have the Middle East is all high sulfur. So people are concerned about will the market comply with that low sulfur for the bunkers? And and then what happened? And they stuck with that, and then the ships they start making modifications. But then and that was about to start in January 2020. That's called IMO 2020. That
And
road
what exactly this IMO 2020 says? Establish limits for the maximum
limits for
sulfur.
sulfur for the bunkers. So
Oh,
all the bunkers in the world, in the waters, should be no more than 0.5% sulfur. All the bunkers. I mean, the bunkers. What is the bunker? What is a bunker? Bunker is a fuel oil plus a diluent, and so you have a fuel oil plus diesel. And so people start saying that we are about to dilute all the fuel oil with diesel, and then you put more diesel into the bunker side. But what happened that, and the refiners they said they need more time to prepare themselves to be like to reduce the sulfur, to have hydrosulfurization units, and so and so. There's a lot of money to be invested. But what happened that in middle 2019, looking for that they will not change the rule, that they will start by 2020, all the refiners start looking for to buy crude with low sulfur. And that fits perfect for the Brazilian crude.
wow, very good.
Even you know all the pre-salt is less than 0.5, it's 0.3, 0.2% sulfur, which having a fuel oil maybe 0.6 or 0.5, which they look to have a perfect bunker for the fuel oil. So the oil will start having premium for the Brazilian crude instead of a discount. Uh,
Lucky country.
let me tell you, the Lula, I don't say exact price, but because the market don't say the price,
Sure.
it's just the level. But the Lula was traded at this Lula, I mean Lula, Iracema, all the pre-salt crudes, and even other crudes, they are uh, traded at a discount to China, Brent -2, -3, or whatever.
Excellent.
And then start having a premium, and then the premium goes up to $8. Can you imagine? And what happened that premium, you have, of course, huge freight from Brazil to China, but even with the freight, if it was not so bad by that time, you get a Brent plus in Brazil for FOB. FOB means free on board, means the loading in Brazil. So the Brazilian crude, it's very more than a Brent, which is a very, let's say, light oil, light sulfur. But that was perfect. And the Chinese, they love the Brazilian crude. Although even the Americans, the Europeans, they like the Brazilian crude, they want more. So have a competition. So that's now Brazil is a perfect situation, the
Yeah.
pre-salt crudes in a perfect market to be placed everywhere.
But
Especially
Brazil,
China will be the ones.
yeah, Brazil, the production in Brazil is almost 2.8 or 3 million barrels a day, I suppose. I'm not sure about the correct number. And the world is almost 100 million barrels a day, the
Yeah,
level. So we are 2 to 3% of the world production at this time. But the world is reducing because there's a demand that we have some problems with health crisis and so. What do you see Brazil increasing to 4 or 5 million barrels a day? For which part of the world we can export this oil? Only for China, only to China, or different
uh,
countries?
that's a very good question. If you look at the just the easy way, China is taking all the oil from the market. Let me tell you something about the 100 million barrels. The world is producing and demanding 100 million barrels. Of course, with the virus came a little down. We can talk about that later. But from that 100 million barrels, we have 50 million barrels, more or less, that are stuck in the same the countries that produce consumes, like U.S., Russia, even China. They are big producers and they consume all their production. They're not exporters. Of course, Russia is a big exporter, but they have a big consumer as well. Brazil produces like 2.8 million, but it's exporting 1.5 or something like that. They'll be increasing the exports.
Mm.
So the exports, the trading oil in the markets, like 50 million barrels, 40 to 50 million barrels a day, which 32 of them came from the OPEC countries, from the Middle Eastern countries and African countries. The Middle East is responsible for 32 million barrels, which is high sulfur. And they have long-term contracts with even the Americans, the Chinese, the Indians, and many different countries. The Saudi produce like exporting more 10 million, 10 million barrels a day. Of course, the Brazilian production, and we have another issue that from this 100 million barrels that's produced now, you'll be reducing each year, have the growing, natural growing of the demand. We can talk later about that as well. There's so many tags to talk about. You have increased, and you have the depletion of the reservoirs. People that are from the E&P side, they know that what I remember, like 6%, 7% of the total production each year, you have to replace. And so every year from those 100 millions, we have a reducing of 6 million barrels of production. So you need to replace with new oil, new discoveries. Of course, we have new discoveries in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia, in the US, have the shale oil that is growing. We can talk about later on about the shale oil. It's a different chapter. The Brent is reducing, Mexican reducing, Venezuela it's almost done. And Brazilian oil is replacing all those oils. Some of them have the Brazilian who is producing oil, increasing the production. It's Brazil and US. There's no the Saudis they can increase, but people say some people say that they cannot increase so much. They can stay that. They put like 11 million just to chase the Russians and the Americans to reduce the price of the oil, but then they got sorry for that because they did too much, and now they're reducing for 5.5 million. I just saw the report of yesterday. Their production came down from 11 to 5.5, and U.S. come from 14.5 million barrels a day to 12.5. So they all reduced. And what I say, I don't see many difficulties for Brazil to place that oil. Of course, China is a big market and is the one that is probably be the main destination because China is still growing. I remember when I start dealing with trading or with studies in the geopolitics, if you look at demand in China, demand per capita in China, because see, China is a big country, have like, I don't know, billions, 1.5 billion inhabitants, I don't remember the number. But the demand of oil per habitat was very small. They are increasing, but they use a lot of coal. The
That's a
country
good
is growing
point.
fast.
So there is a tremendous potential to increase because by person the consumption is still low. Let's say.
Yeah, yeah. By person, you see, China, India, they are countries that can explode the demand because they have, if they go to the oil and getting down in the coal and other sources. And so still have a lot of room to increase the demand. Maybe Europe, US, it's not, there's not too much place to grow the demand, but even those, they are reducing the production. Europe, they have reducing the brand, and so they need to import more crude, and probably Brazil can supply them. Brazil or West Africa. West Africa was a promised area to increase the production. They are not accomplishing with the production. They are not producing too much crude that they are expecting before. Angola, for example, they are producing, but not as much as they are looking
Yeah,
before,
as predicted.
as predicted. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right.
that so
But
have many areas that are so the areas that are growing are Brazil and US. That's why maybe that's Odoni, the ANP guy said, Brazil, it's if you have, and Brazil has a good, let's say, although all the shaking, people still trust that Brazil
will
accomplished with the
be.
rules.
Yeah,
Brazil
that's
comply
right.
with the rules. Brazil doesn't change the rules.
Yeah, yeah,
That's happened with the oil since 1998 when starting the bid rounds. It
yeah,
didn't change anything. It changed the governments come to one side to the other side and didn't change the rules
yeah.
for the
Deep.
one that's buying. That's very
Yeah,
important. We have to
very
keep that.
important. Yeah. Did you mentioned shale gas, shale oil in United States? United States, the consumption nowadays are around 20 million barrels a day. The conventional production around 7 or 6, 7.
Yeah, they are
I do
producing.
not know exactly the number. And shale was 10, 11, 9, 10, 11
Yeah,
equivalent.
I saw the numbers. They come up to 14.5. The numbers of the total production in the U.S.
Yeah, so they import 6 million
Yeah,
barrels
six
a
million
day.
barrels.
So it's a huge volume. So it's a
Still huge.
2 or 3 times Brazilian production. So there is a room, a very good room for Brazil to export a part of the production, but maybe some kind of refinery profile characteristics that they have and the oil that we produce. There are some issues in
Yeah,
this
yeah.
point.
You're right. Going back to the history, why? Because the American they are importing a lot of crude in the past. They're importing a lot of crude from Mexico and from Venezuela. Mexico and Venezuela produce very heavy crudes. And so even the Mexican and the Venezuelans invest a lot in US in the refineries to process their oils to have their own market. We have refineries like Deer Park or Motiva. They are huge, let's say they are very sophisticated refineries that can process this very heavy crude, even high sulfur, and produce, maybe transform, let's say, rocks in diesel. They are very good refineries. And because of that, they invest a lot in the past. The American refineries, they tend to get cheaper oil to get more advantage. So instead of buying, let's say, the pre-salt, that which not a light oil, but it's not as heavy as they desire. So they prefer to buy some heavy crudes, even some Colombian crudes, some Ecuadorian crudes that are more heavier than the Brazilian one, and to process the refineries and get better profit margins. But that's a problem for the US. That's why the shale oil is very light, much lighter than the pre-salt, much lighter than Brazilian oil, much lighter than all the Central America and South America. And they are the refineries. Some of the refineries they are processing their crude, but without that processing the shale oil, they are producing much more naphtha, gasoline, maybe a little diesel, not as much as they need, and they're not producing fuel oil. They need some fuel oil as well for the bunkering. So they need to have to process some heavy crudes or medium heavy crudes. That's why they will they are exporting those some of those shale oil. They're exporting those condensate and shale oil and importing. So they're kind of doing what Brazil did in the past. Brazil was exporting some high sulfur, uh, some low sulfur, and importing high sulfur. That's exchanging quality. So they are doing that, and they'll keep importing a lot of crudes, and they import the Brazilian crudes as well, together with other heavy crudes.
Yeah, good. Dib, let's talk a little bit about Brazil and Brazilian market. Supposing you become a very huge investor, very rich man, and you have money enough to buy a refinery, a refinery, and at the same time you can invest on a import system from crude, from products from different refineries worldwide. So what your option? Buy a refinery in Brazil or make importation from
Yeah,
different refineries?
$1 million question. It's very difficult to answer just straight because I have a lot of consideration to do. Uh, I learned since I was a child that the crude oil should be refined close to the market and not far from the market. It was something that I learned when I was studying refineries position. Brazil did that in the past. Petrobras built up a huge refining system to supply the whole country. Uh, that's true. Of course, it's cheaper to transport crude oil in bigger vessels than to transport several different products. Because in the local refinery, you can produce gasoline as the quality you need, diesel the quality you need, you can do that. Of course, you have some advantage with the globalization. Like, for example, India, they build up like two big two big companies like Reliance and Saudi. Reliance built up a 1.5 million barrels capacity distillation refinery just for export. So they're exporting a lot of diesel to even to Brazil, to Europe, and to the United States. So the refineries are built up just for export because they have a very low cost of building refineries. So the refineries there is like, if I'm not wrong, maybe it's 1/10 of the cost of the refinery that Brazil built in Northeast, the Renes. So it's much cheaper. But still, have the logistics, you have everything. Let me put this way: Brazil in the past nobody trusts in the price policy of Petrobras of the Brazilian government because they are, if the inflation is going up, they are pushing the price down and not following the international market. This is stimulating companies to buy refineries. If you have a, let's say, international price for the products, the companies who have refineries with margins, with positive margins, so they can come here. There are some logistic issues in Brazil. Brazil is a very big country, and you can import only for the coast. You cannot bring crude by planes. You have to be by ships. So the ships go to the coast. And so how do you put the gasoline in Mato Grosso, in Goiás? You have to transport. So it would be a huge transportation cost. So you need to have refineries supply the interior of the country, and also refiners with good quality to supply the big cities which are in the coast. I don't know. I didn't answer your question yet because I'm trying to put some considerations. It's not easy. Uh, I
Sure.
think
Well,
that you need to be a balance, not just to have. We don't need to be like we thought in the past, 100% self-sufficient in refining. Don't need that because you can easily buy products everywhere. You can buy gasoline, you can buy diesel, you can buy. But you need to be like some kind of protection. And by having competition here, refineries, not just with one company, not just state-owned company, the government cannot interfere in the price, which was the big concern of the whole anyone that wants to buy a refinery to build up a refinery in Brazil.
yep.
And then maybe many companies can come here and invest in refining. There are different ways of refining, like happening in China, for example. China has like three, four big companies like PetroChina, Sinopec, Sinochem, and Sinopec. Now have maybe 1,000 of small companies, refiners. They call the teapots. The teapots are very small refiners. They are just teapots, mean like a teapot, just distillation. They start growing, and the government of China start giving them some room for them to grow because the market is growing, so the refineries are growing. We can have the same happening in Brazil, like small refineries building
Yeah.
up small niche of refineries just to produce bunkers, for example, or gasoline, for example.
They
That can happen.
are they more regional, more local than central?
Yeah, because of the government of China is a central government. They are not allowing them to import the crude, so they need to buy the crude from the big ones. They're not allowing to export the products. But step by step, they are getting some freedom to do their business. So they are buying Brazil, Petrobras, Shell, Total, all the producers in Brazil, the shale, the pre-salt producers, they are going to China. They are selling to the small refineries, not just to the big ones. In the past, they can only sell to PetroChina and Sinopec. That's why also China is getting increasing the buying from Brazil. Those small, those that are small companies, but they are getting bigger. I want to tell that and say that I think they have a mix. Not just say that we will build up refineries to process the whole crude. We still have to consider the logistic, the security of. Sometimes you can have problems in importing a certain quality of crude to supply the country. I Let's back in 1995, I was a diesel coordination in Brazil. Brazil by that time was not exporting too much, exporting most gasoline, and fuel oil. But there was a big strike in Petrobras, big one, like 1 month strike in Petrobras, and we need the employment strike that was like hold for 1 month. And by that time, we need to import a lot of diesel. I remember to import 3 million cubic meters of diesel in 1 month. It's a huge volume by that time. Our big concern was how to supply the whole country by just getting from the inside from the coast. It was very difficult. And the refineries just stuck for 30 days. It was very difficult. We worked hard, small vessels, big vessels, buying the market just go skyrocketed the prices of diesel. Diesel and LPG was the main concern. But then we see that we cannot say, oh, no, we not build up any refinery, just import everything. Cannot do that. There have to be a mix. Import some of the products, maybe products that were not so efficient, and produce more products can be efficient. I can export a lot of bunkers, low sulfur, which have a very good price now, and maybe start importing more diesel. Why not? That's not a problem if you can get there. And the refiners will be adjusting if you have an international market, international price, and we have to invest a lot also in a lot of logistics. That's no problem in Brazil. By if you go to privatize the refiners and split up the refiners, but the refiners are built up a system that Petrobras owns 100% of the market. So one refinery produces more gasoline, the other one produces more fuel oil, the other one produces more diesel. You can combine them in the logistics. But you imagine a refinery that is privatized. They don't want to produce more. The product gives more better return, and not just produce. The government cannot interfere in the production.
Yeah.
So we need to have more the logistics of how to move products from one side to the other,
From side to
how to
other side.
import, to get in more terminals, more ports. So that's be a lot. It'd be a, and that's it's a good challenge because coming with that privatization, that opening the market, it comes a lot of
Yeah.
investments, not just in the refining, but in logistics, in
Logistics.
the import and export.
That's a good point, Dib. So to become self-sufficient in Brazil nowadays, it's not necessary to produce and refine everything that we need. We need to let's say control the systems in terms of importation, exportation. So this compensation that must be carried.
Yeah, you're right. Let me tell you, I lived in the US for a while working there, and I learned that from the American market. You know, American, as I mentioned, import 6 million barrels of crude. They import, it's the American market is so weird because they export a lot of gasoline and diesel from the US Gulf. They import a lot of gasoline and diesel from New York. So they did that because that's crazy because to make a cabotage from US Gulf to New York, it's so expensive because you have to use American vessels like the Jones Act. It's a crazy act. You can say about Brazilian acts. I don't talk about
We do
politicians,
not
not
have
politics.
we do not have this protection here.
Don't have this protection here, but and to transport from refinery Texas to New York, it's very expensive to do it by ship. So what they do, they export from Texas to Brazil, for example, and they import from Europe to New York.
Mm,
And that's very interesting. But despite of that, if you look at the map of pipelines in US, I can show you later for anyone that wants can question. I have this map of pipelines. The pipelines cross the whole United States. A refinery from Texas can move from the Colonial Pipeline from Texas to Washington, to Philadelphia, to New York. From New York, can move to Chicago, to even to the West Coast, from Texas to the West Coast. So in Brazil, don't have this. Have just
no.
two systems like have Rio, São Paulo, and that's all. You have a lot of movements of trucks, places that are just supplied by trucks. You have Amazon totally supplied by trucks, Mato
And,
Grosso,
and it's too
Brasilia. Brasilia,
expensive.
they
And
built up a pipeline, but that's
yeah,
still,
and too expensive compared to pipelines.
that's correct. No, trucks and other ways. And you don't use too much trains and not rivers, just trucks. And the pipelines, they are built more in São Paulo, but you don't have in the south pipelines to go. So I have to go everything by trucks. In the north, sometimes you have a fault in Belém, you need to bring from Rio Grande do Norte to Belém by truck. So that's expensive. And that's all paid by the end user.
Then
The
you
whole system is
sure,
paid by the end user.
sure, the final
So we need
consumer.
to build up an infrastructure. That's a lot of place to infrastructure. In the past, there are maybe because of the tariffs, the prices, because the government, not the government at the beginning before the finish of the monopoly, but then the price of the other products they are paying for that transportation.
Perfect.
But back to the question of the refiners, you're absolutely right. You don't need to develop, and that I think that will be natural to develop. It will be a huge, let's say, opportunity for investments. That will be good
Yeah.
for the country. It gives more jobs. We give more opportunities. We put the country more safe in the supply.
Mhm.
Of course, we can buy diesel from India, from even the Middle East. They are
Everywhere.
building a lot of refineries there. Middle East, Saudi Arabia, not to export the crude, they prefer to export the product because they have huge support. So we need to do that, a balance here and there, and looking for opportunity to invest even in small refineries to complete to, let's say, develop the existing refineries. U.S. what they didn't buy a refinery since the 50s, I think, maybe early 60s. They're the newest refineries, but they are upgrading the refineries. We need to build new refineries, maybe to upgrade the refineries, and have to compare what is better. That make economic cost. What is better to build up a refinery in Maranhão or to build a new refinery in São Paulo and then to transport to Maranhão by pipeline or by
Yeah,
ship,
yeah.
or to import in Maranhão because it's cheaper to import from Venezuela, not now, but in the past, or
Not
from
the case.
the U.S. Gulf, import from the north, from the America, and then to export from the south. Do what Americans are doing now. So
Yeah,
that's a
that's
lot of
right.
opportunities. I think that I'm very, I don't know, because I've been too long in the monopoly system and I learned the open system. Now I see that if you open the system, everything will come naturally. Of course, the government needs to be cautious about not to giving more, to move from a state-owned monopoly to a privatized monopoly. You need to be very careful and to need to
Yeah,
create rules and create boundaries, not
that
to.
that's a good point because as we have a very limited logistics, internal logistics between
That's right.
our accents, so this is a point that we may take care to not make private
But
monopoly.
but Cavani, we learned something it's very interesting. You remember when 2014, not long ago, when the price of crude just collapsed. It was
Yeah,
like $110 a barrel, the Brent, and came down to $40 to $30, even $30. Just collapsed the price. And what happened? Petrobras during the whole, let's say, for 10 years or even more than that, was having losses because of the price control of the government.
yep,
The government is not allowing Petrobras to increase the price because of having losses. And what happened in 2014 when the price came down and the government said, oh, not interfere in the price. Okay. Price kept the gasoline and diesel price in a high level, which was before. That's not affecting inflation because they are already there. The dollar is not pressuring, the currency is not pressuring the price. And what happened that because of the high price of gasoline and diesel in Brazil, many companies start importing gasoline and diesel.
yep,
And it's amazing. Like I like to compare with when you have a heart attack, you have the main veins, or I don't know, arteries. I don't know the names in. Sorry for the English speaking because I spoken, but your your body creates some
alternatives,
bypass to
bypass.
that. And that's what happened that gasoline in Sao Paulo, they create a lot of ways to import the gasoline through a terminal. They create new storage price first goes up,
Yep,
and they create a movement by trucks, by train, by many things, and they import from everywhere. That was so big, the imports. In the beginning, Petrobras was not concerned about that. Oh, no, because that's just small because the country is very difficult to import for the interior. But after some time, the price was so high, so they start importing. People are making money like crazy. Diesel, they're importing for a price, they are selling a very high price. And what happened that it was such a big import that I was affecting the refineries in Petrobras. Petrobras need to reduce the price, put down the price, just to control that import. That was big fight. Hey, who? So Petrobras is controlling the monopoly, controlling the prices. So that was a big fight between distributors and Petrobras, and that's maybe that's the reason we need to have, let's say, not just Petrobras refineries, maybe private refineries and price not controlled, but the market will control the price. Because let me tell you, we are in a government that is say, oh no, let's Petrobras do the price. But if start affecting the inflation, if the government has the possibility to control the price, they will get that. Unfortunately, that's something that happens very often. Can change the government, can come back, and can control. So we need to create structures
yeah,
not to allow the price to be controlled. And
yeah,
the only way to do that is by diversifying the market. If a monopoly, state-owned monopoly, government will use that anyway.
yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah, and there is a huge challenge for ANP, for the agencia, just after selling the refineries, because till now, Petrobras is responsible to put products everywhere in the country. And after reselling the refineries, probably Petrobras cannot control the system. So ANP must take over this control, no?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know how they need to study that very carefully, not to put like a government control and to be something
So
very,
it's a
let's
market
say,
driven.
the market driven.
Okay.
One important, I was thinking about one thing that is very important, like how to the refineries to be, let's say, I was thinking about something, I'm lost, but diversify, yes, by diversifying the refineries, what will happen? Now we have like as we were saying in the beginning, 2.8 million barrels production will be like 4.5 million production. It's natural to take that production and to most of the production to be processed by the refineries in Brazil.
Yeah,
But to
sure.
be free for the refineries to import. Of course, now Petrobras has the refineries, Petrobras putting their own oil in the refineries. It's cheaper for that for Petrobras, and the refineries not are importing only if Petrobras wants. You have like a private refinery. They can buy from Petrobras, they can buy from Shell, they can buy from Total, from
BP,
State Oil, not State Oil, it's
uh, Equinor.
Equinor. Sorry, guys from Equinor. It changed the name. But from Equinor, they can buy from any of those companies, or they can import from the maybe different crudes,
Yeah.
heavier crudes, cheaper. I don't know, depending on their
Prices and
basket of
availability.
price. And that would be a huge challenge, even for tax, because one of the things that the Brazil, it's like say people say Brazil is very expensive. The costs in Brazil because the tax is huge. Tax for gasoline, the ICMS, the taxes are very huge. And even to move crude in Brazil, it's better to export than to put in a refinery because you have to pay the taxes, unless the refinery pays for the tax. So you need to have like very balanced way of tax policy with the privatization. I don't know how are you doing at the time. So far, so good.
No, it's good. No, we have more 5 minutes to finish and to your conclusions, because it's very rich conversation, of course, and you have a history and
I'm
detailed.
sorry if I divagate a lot of many different
No,
things,
it's
but I'm
good.
going.
It's fantastic, because people that are watching you is seeing the amount of information and responsibility you had in the past and bring it to us at this time. So it's very interesting. Go ahead, please.
I'm very I have a lot of histories to tell. I've been not that something that I read, and I'm passing that I read. I actually I lived this all the history. I passed from the monopoly to the open market. I to from importing to exporting, gasoline, diesel, crude oil, LPG. There's a lot of things that we are. I work in natural gas. That was like a small market, and it's growing up. So that's a and every day changing. As a consultant, I can tell you, I have to study every day.
Every
Even
day.
today, the market goes up to 40. Hey, why the market? Hey, the crude oil is going up. Hey, come on. What will be the price tomorrow? I remember that in Petrobras when I was the risk manager. The people from the logistic or from the commercial come to me, hey, TB, the price will go up or down. Come on. You know that? Yes, I know. Why don't you tell me? I don't tell you. If I tell you, that would be so easy because that's something everybody wants
Yeah,
to know what
predict.
is going on, and you have
Yeah,
so millions of variables that can
yeah,
change every
variables.
day.
You cannot, yeah, you cannot see everything. You know, a prediction is something wrong.
Something wrong. You need to be to put all the stuffs in the same area, same room, and so they come in. You can have go that direction, this direction, that,
Yeah,
and you need to study. And that's the beauty of the market, the crude oil market. And it was like $20 a month ago. The oil came down to $20 the Brent.
Yeah.
People say, "Oh, I'll stop my company. I'll stop producing. Investment I made will not work anymore, or the price will not." You can talk to a lot of specialists in the market,
Yeah. Yeah.
analysts everywhere. Oh, this year the price will not come back again. Oh,
Yeah.
not. Oh, the development will not come back again. Only in the fourth quarter, and maybe 2022, not 2021 already. Come on, we're
Come
back to
on.
40.
Yeah.
We're back to the price that was like just when the beginning of
Unpredictable.
the
Yeah.
pandemic. And maybe we could go to, now they're talking about 55 next year. Come on, hey, you change your mind.
That's
That's
right.
why I cannot tell you what's going on.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
of course, I'm very positive about the oil market. Let's go to maybe the final consideration we talked before,
Yep.
like what to be the future of the crude
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And comparing to the energy transition and
energy transition,
the
the
whole
alternative sources.
aspect of this, yeah.
Uh, People, please don't beat me. I'll be very, maybe I'll not say what exactly people want to hear, but what I learned from my history in the crude, the best substitute for the crude is another crude. It's a new crude. That's what I learned. When the price came down, like for now, for example, like 3 months that I don't hear about solar energy, about ethanol, about wind. If you go back to last year, when the price went up to $85, that was 1 month at 85, then come down to 68. Oh no, the wind is with the future. Crude oil will be finishing. Crude oil is not anymore. Come on, you still have a lot of room to crude oil to go. I remember once I went to Oxford, no, to I come on, I'm getting old, I'm forgetting something. It was a city near London that was what is the city? The castle, very close to London. It was a
Cambridge,
function. Hmm? Not Cambridge, not
Cambridge.
Cambridge. That is a big castle that the Queen goes there very often. Doesn't matter.
Okay, doesn't matter.
There was the Eton College is there. Eton College is there. There was a big function sponsored by Prince Philip's about energy and the futures and about the environment, not about energy, about environmental. And he invites all the CEOs of the big companies like Microsoft, like IBM, like Shell, Exxon, many companies. And remember, there was a speech from the former CEO of BP, John Brown, that he said, people are just blaming the oil, that oil is so pollute, a lot of pollution, the sulfur and CO2 and CO and so. And then Windsor, sorry, I remember the city, the Windsor Castle.
Windsor, Windsor. Yeah.
But what happened that what he said is very interesting because said, come on, people, the oil will stay for 50 years more. The alternative sources of energy represents five, maybe they will grow a lot of efforts go from 5 to 10%. You still have coal and oil that will still be there for the next 50 years. What you need to say is not to oil is the devil
The world.
of the world. Maybe you need to treat the oil gently, like reduce the sulfur. Try to put refineries with better ways to reduce the sulfur. Reduce the CO2 emission, like putting
Yeah.
more catalytics in the cars, in the ships, in the planes.
Isn't necessary to kill the oil production, only to adjust, to optimize the system, and
Of
to use
course,
better this volume that you have just discovered.
the oil is the most flexible fuel that you have in the world. You can go from all area of energy to produce electricity, to planes, to cars, to ships, to industries, all sorts of energy, you need the oil. And so, my, of course, that will be a period that will discover new and cheapest way of energy. But you still have a lot of time to live with oil. So people that are investing oil now, they will still have a long time. I will not see the end of the oil in my life. You
Yeah,
too.
not
But
soon.
probably you have solar energy that it's coming,
Yeah,
but still a long way to do that. You need to create energies that will not be sponsored by the crude. They need to be sponsored by themselves. What they want now is that the crude to be high price to sponsor the energy, like
Yeah.
it was in Brazil, the past for the ethanol.
Mhm.
Gasoline was sponsored the ethanol, paying for the ethanol. So that's that's not fair. It's not healthy. You need to have like the source of energy should be self-sufficient, to be let's say, feed up, can do itself, not just sponsored by another energy or not by governments. Because if
Government.
the government needs to pay for that, there'll be a subsidy that someone will pay for that.
Yeah, and the
Like in
final.
Brazil, when
Yeah,
having subsidy for the gasoline, for the diesel, oh no, it's the government, not the government. Somebody's paying that.
yeah,
The whole society is paying for that.
yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right.
That's why I
Deep.
think that we need to have cheapest energy.
Yeah.
Did I maybe we are finishing the time, right?
Yeah. No, no, it's okay. Yeah, that's right. So we need to use the energy that we have. So do not discard this
Of course,
system.
and not of course. If I don't say that I don't need to go to wind or to solar. Of course, they are very good, maybe. But when I see a beach with a lot of those wind posts, that's more pollution that you have an oil with CO2. Come on,
Yeah, yeah,
pollute the whole view. I don't think that
yeah,
maybe you have to
yeah,
change the way. You have to be
yeah.
honest with yourself, not
I
keep
agree.
polluting or with that put solar panels everywhere. Come on, where do you put the car? The solar panels you put everywhere. Come on, you can put in your cellars, in your houses, but with limitation with that. But somebody's paying for that energy. You need to see how it that.
Yeah, good. Dib, please do not go. Stay in the meeting. I will disconnect the live stream. And
Okay.
first of all, thank you so much for being in this conversation. It was a pleasure for me. You are a very famous guy, and for me, it's so important to bring you to the cafe. And so, thank you very much.
No, thank you, Kaveh. Thank you very much. Thank you for everyone that participated in that. I hope they are enjoyed that call. I am, of course, in 1 hour. I cannot tell about 40 years of experience or about what I'm seeing, what I'm looking. We have a lot of things to do there, and I hope that we can have more times
Yeah,
even
sure,
further
sure.
to
You
for
can repeat
the
and
for the
move
opportunity.
move
That's very good.
move on.